economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
If you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. Confuse you.
My definition of white supremacy and racism, I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Robert Siegel.
And I'm Melissa Block. The narrative of race in America returns again and again to one Midwestern city, Springfield, Illinois. It's the adopted hometown of Abraham Lincoln, and Barack Obama announced his run for the presidency there. But it's also lesser known for a horrible episode from 100 years ago, a race riot in 1908 that left several people dead and gave rise to the NAACP. NPR's Cheryl Corley reports.
I'm standing at the intersection of 7th and Jefferson in the historic business district of Springfield, not far from Abraham Lincoln's home.
This is the first marker, site of the old county jail.
Catherine Harris, a head librarian at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, is standing next to one of several markers in the area that tell the story of the 1908 riot, tracing its path of destruction and violence.
What precipitated the riot really had its genesis before. A white engineer had been murdered. His name was Clergy Ballard.
That was in July, and Joe James, the black man accused of killing Ballard, was in the county jail awaiting trial. In August, things got more tense when another black man was jailed after a white woman claimed he raped her. A large crowd of whites wanted to take matters into their own hands, and on August 14th, they gathered at the jail. The sheriff, fearful of violence, secretly took the two prisoners to another jail about 60 miles away.
When the people discovered that they had been duped, all hell broke loose.
In 1908, about 2,500 African Americans lived in Springfield, about 5% of the town's population. With the prisoners gone, the mob turned its fury on areas where blacks lived and worked. Homes were torched, black-owned businesses ravaged. Many blacks fled, others fought back, and Scott Burton, an African-American barber who stayed behind to protect his home, was lynched.
What was distressing, even more so, about being lynched was they mutilated his body. Shot it, beat it. It must have been just an awful sight.
By the next day, the mob had grown in size. The National Guard was dispatched. Even so, the mob killed another man. William Donegan was an elderly black shoemaker who lived with his white wife. At least 7 people died in all, including a black infant, from exposure, and several white men who were killed by gunshots. Hundreds were injured, and damage in the city totaled, by today's standards, nearly $3 million.
You know, the riots, it was not uncommon for them to happen, but it happened in Lincoln's hometown, and that's what really caught people off guard, because this was supposed to have been a safe place for blacks, with Springfield, and actually it wasn't at that time.
Kenneth Page is the head of the NAACP in Springfield, and it was the riot, he says, which sparked the creation of the civil rights organization, after journalist William English Walling asked in 1908 who would come to the aid of African Americans under siege. Nelson Rivers, the national chief of the NAACP's field operations, says social activist Mary White Ovington and two others met in New York to discuss solutions, and from that small meeting, the NAACP would grow to play a role in nearly every major civil rights battle in the country.
And who would have thought that an organization that never had a $50 million budget, never had 1 million members, and never had to resort to violence, has been able to persevere and change America the way it has. So Springfield reminds us that just because you lose or because something tragic happened does not have to define your future.
Now Springfield is recognizing the eruption that scarred the city 100 years ago and is urging the world to do so too.
This was part of our history, and we're not running away from it.
Springfield's mayor, Timothy Dovlin, has issued a formal apology for the days of terror that took place in Springfield.
It's not going to make things right after 100 years. I think it is the right thing to do.
Events commemorating the riot continue in Springfield, and a statue depicting the devastation of the town will sit directly across from the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Joe James, the man accused of killing the white railroad engineer in 1908, was executed. The prisoner who had been charged with rape was released from jail after his accuser admitted she lied. More than 100 indictments for rioting, arson, larceny, and murder were issued, but there was only one conviction. A man who stole a military saber was found guilty of petty larceny. Cheryl Corley, NPR News.
You are now listening to P.A.R. People Activity Radio, and I'm your host, JohnGHorse. Welcome. You have found your family in a peaceful place. PAR aims to be a family-friendly information distribution program seeking to inform non-white people, in particular black classifieds, and assisting in counter-racist codification. The title of today's show is Racial Dislocation Confusion and the 1908 Race Riot of Springfield, Illinois. And I'd like to make a correction right away. Historians, suspected white supremacist historians, call a lot of these attacks upon black citizens of the United States of America as race riots. That is an arbitrary, incorrect, inaccurate description of what's actually taking place and what has actually taken place in United States history. These are anti-black ethnic cleansings, forced removals, and land grabs by way of anti-black terror, targeting black people, threatening and lynching and killing and murdering and burning up properties, destroying black businesses, etc., etc. These are not riots. These are white mobs targeting the black side of town and running black people out of the black side of town. And the conclusion of these so-called riots always conclude in the same way. Around the country, in particular in Northern America, the conclusion is all white enclaves, all white sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, sanctuary towns, all white sundown towns, meaning don't let the sun hit you when it goes down, or anything goes. You understand me? If you are found in town at nighttime and you are classified as black, whatever happens. That is basic, that is fundamental to United States culture, United States history, and almost 99.99% of these cases of so-called riots, which are nothing but white terror targeting black people, nobody is ever held accountable for the crimes of murdering black American citizens. Nobody, for the most part, is ever even arrested for the murder of black American citizens. And nobody ever talks about it after it happens. It's just, well, we're a white town, and I guess it's always been this way. They get real confused on history and how things become the way that they do. But I digress. Again, we're talking about Springfield, Illinois, the home of self-proclaimed white supremacist and President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Now, in the report that I played before my introduction, the report said that there was a levee district. Hold on. I'm going a little bit too fast. The report said that the climate of so-called race relations was going south because a well-connected white engineer of Springfield, Illinois, was murdered in his home on the white side of town. And the prime suspect in this murder was, guess who? A black American citizen of Springfield, Illinois. The name escapes me. I'm sorry for not having the name, but if you research this event, you can easily find it. But all we do know that it was a black male already apprehended in under the custody of the police department in Springfield, Illinois. So it was already rumblings going on. Now, I'm just going to question one thing. I don't know if he was a real suspect or not, but I do know the history of the United States of America. Falsely accuses black males of crimes that white people commit. And because white people understand the system of racism and white supremacy, so-called white people just say, well, I saw a black man there. Even though, this guy was a well-connected engineer of Springfield, Illinois. This is just me talking. There's no fact to this. But he could have been in competition with another well-connected person in Springfield, Illinois. They put a hit out on him, and somebody just said a Negro killed him. This is Illinois. You understand me? But I digress. So they has this one black American male in the jail, and then maybe a week later, awaiting the trial of the murder, some white woman stumbles her behind up to the police station and says she was knocked upside the head, assaulted, and or raped by a black male. Here we go again. You understand? So that accusation seemed to infuriate the so-called white public of Springfield, Illinois. Now they had a suspect, and they apprehended him. And the sheriff knew that there was a mob gathering. So the story goes, like they said on the report, that the sheriff had to get both the prime suspect of the murder and the suspect of the alleged rape out of the jailhouse, maybe to a safe area, to a safe house in a neighboring county. I don't know where the hell they was gonna go. Because the neighboring county is gonna have the same attitude toward Negroes that are accused of crimes against white folks. So I don't know where he was gonna go, but he had made a plan before the mob gathered in front of the jailhouse, because once that mob get in front of the jailhouse, the American tradition was to pull the Negroes up out of there and string them up right there in the streets. You understand me? That's how it goes. This is the North. This isn't the South. This isn't Mississippi. This isn't Arkansas. This isn't Georgia. This isn't Texas. This isn't Florida. This isn't Louisiana. This isn't North Carolina. This isn't South Carolina. This is Springfield, Illinois, the hometown of Abraham Lincoln, the so-called great emancipator. But I digress. So what he did was fake a fire alarm in an adjacent building. While everyone's attention was on the fire alarm, he then used a vehicle of a white merchant who had a vehicle. Everybody didn't have cars back then. So he used a vehicle of a white merchant and got both black males out of the jailhouse, out of town. Once the white mob found out that they had been tricked, they targeted the white male's business because they know they used his car. Witness had seen it. They targeted the white male's business, and then they said, "Wait a minute," because they always try to make these people seem dumb. Wait a minute. Look how good them Negroes is living over there. Yes, see how this goes. Let's not destroy the white business district. Let's go to the levee district. Now, the levee district is where a lot of the under economy was going on, a lot of the gambling, the numbers running, the prostitution, the drugs, all of the lower frequency activity, all of the slumming was going on in the levee district. Now, in the levee district, there were also black merchants, black business owners, barbers, tailors, you name it. It was popping in the levee district also. But you know how it goes. You can't go to the white side, but whites can always come down. And in a common practice in black sides of towns, white men come over for the prostitutions. Of course, they come over for the black females in the prostitutions and black males in prostitutions. But in these particular levee district, red light district, black business district brothels, you could only serve or have white patrons. If you were found out to be having black men coming in there frequenting the prostitutes, that was death to your business. I'm just giving you a context of how things work. You understand me? Moving right along. So in close proximity of the levee district in Springfield, Illinois, or the red light district, just to give you a context equivalent to like Las Vegas or something like that. Not even a high level Las Vegas, but just a slummy area where white people can go and do all the devious things and prostitution, every which way but loose, and run numbers and slum. You had the Badlands. Now, the Badlands was where the black business owners and the black working class lived. That was the black side of town. I'm not talking about Mississippi. I'm not talking about Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Carolina, Kentucky. I'm talking about Springfield, Illinois. This is the North, 1908. Don't let nobody tell you that straight no chase of racism, white supremacy is exclusive to the South. So you have to understand, after the Civil War, 1865, the South, for the most part, and I'm not trying to make the South seem like, some saints, but they had an infrastructure and a culture somewhat of interacting with large numbers of blacks. You understand that? Matter of fact, blacks in most southern areas were either 50% of the population and or above 50%, some 60, some 70, outnumbering the whites. This is one of the biggest issues about emancipating blacks. That you trying to emancipate, these people gonna take over. You understand what I'm saying? So they had to go to war, they had to secede. But just under that context, the North did not have infrastructure. The North did not have a constructed codification on how to deal with blacks. So whenever more than 4 or 5 blacks are around, northern cities would have a doggone fit. And they would just wreck shop. Hold on, it's too many of these so-called blacks coming up in here. We're going to have to put a stop to this. So a lot of these massacres arbitrarily called race riots, they happen in the north. You understand me? Because the north had to set the tempo. If y'all Negroes think y'all going to come up here taking these jobs, if y'all Negroes come up here thinking y'all going to compete with me on an economic level, y'all got another thing coming. And we are willing to take it all the way to the top to show y'all that we mean what we say when we say white side of town and black side of town. And if the numbers of the blacks hinted or even postured to be over 5% of the population, which was already an alarm. It was like a certain amount of Negroes can be around. A certain amount of Negroes can have a little, money in their pocket. But once it get past that number, we got to put these Negroes in their place. This is essential to American culture. And this was the same case in Springfield, Illinois, hometown of Honest Abe Lincoln, self-proclaimed white supremacist. So this mob, when they found out that they had been duped and the sheriff had got the 2 black males up out of the prison and took them out of harm's way, wherever that was, they decided to go toward the Black Business District, which was the levee district. And there was a brother by the name of Scott Burden. Now, he was one of the casualties, but let me tell you something. Scott Burden had got his family up out of his home. He had got them into a safe area. And then Scott Burden turned back around and went to his business. And he took a couple white folks with him before they caught up with him. Now, he probably ran out of bullets. It's like it wasn't like they had an armory replenishing your bullets. So he clipped a couple of white supremacists, and then they got him. And then once they got him, as you heard on the report, Scott Burden, the honorable, kamikaze, black self-respect. You understand what I'm saying? Ashe, Scott Burden went down like a soldier. You understand me? All these myths of black folks didn't fight back. There was also a couple of brothers on top of the buildings shooting down white people. Now take in mind, white folks outnumbered the black population 10-1, 20-1. You understand me? So the brothers, once they ran out of bullets, I suspect that they got up out of Dodge, but they took a couple white folks with them. And in the reports, it says some black men were struck down by some white men were struck down by gunfire. Yeah. They got sniped by some brothers that took some white compensatory action. But see, we don't hear these. You just running with their tail between their legs. You got to understand, these brothers understood they were at war, and they acted accordingly. You understand what I'm saying? They did what they could. But when you run out of ammunition, and when you don't have the local police department, and if you don't have the federal government protecting you as a black citizen, and these people finna come and wreck shop, you just got to get real. Get your family up out of there. You understand what I'm saying? And if you want to go out like a soldier, if you like, I'm not running. You know what I'm saying? Then it is what it is. So for the efforts of these brothers, in particular, the fallen soldier, Scott Burden, man, I wish I knew his history. He probably was a soldier. He probably fought for this punk behind country. You understand what I'm saying? And I'll be doggone it if I'm finna run after I done bled and put in my time from these. I'm taking some of them with me. Hero movie need to be made about them. These are the stories, man. You understand what I'm saying? These are the stories. You got us looking at Braveheart and Rocky, and we cheering. No, man. It's these hidden gems that you got to understand. We ain't no punks. We don't come from punks. But I digress. I'm sorry. I'm getting off subject. So the next day, the National Guard had came to protect the black citizens because the mob then turned on, I believe it was a church or some place where there was a lot of black people seeking refuge. The National Guard turned them away, and then they turned and they knew of a house of an elderly black man who was married to a white woman. The white woman said ain't nobody here, but they knew he was there. He was old. He was too old to run. Like 78 to 80 years old. Soft target. William Donegan. And they brought William Donegan out, touched him up. And they tried to drown him in like a water, like where the horses used to drink out of the water, a trough where the horses used to drink their water when they sitting tied up. They tried to drown him in that, but he was too tall. They had a difficult time, so this brother was being tortured, waterboarded, touched up, stabbed. So they strung him up right there on his property in front of his wife, and the National Guard was looking right across the street looking at it. They didn't go stop nothing because their orders was to protect the large masses of the... you know what? I'm not even going to get into that. They strung the brother up. And I believe they dismembered his body or just left him there, just hanging. Left him there hanging. By this time, the whole entire black business district, the Levee district, and the Badlands, which was the area where the black people live, was just burned down just to smithereens. The entire black community didn't exist no more. People left with the rags that they had on their backs. And the only reason why we do know that a couple of brothers was on the roof shooting because there was a girl. She was an elderly woman who got interviewed in the 70s. She was actually one of the children who had seek refuge at the church that the National Guard had came and protected. She witnessed William Donegan, the 78-year-old to 80-year-old elderly man, which was married to the white woman who was retired. He was a retired business owner. He just was, living in his golden years, and he got strung up by a mob of white terrorists. Now, for someone, a historian, to keep calling this a race riot, it's insulting. It's disrespect. It's disingenuous. It wasn't no race riot. It was an attempted massacre. And she also told stories of family friends. Scott Burton, who was well known, he was a barber, the guy who stayed in his business and fought to the death. And she told about the black men that went on the top of buildings and was picking off white folks. We wouldn't know this because they don't report black men and women who fight back. They just report you ran with your tail between your legs and you didn't put up a fuss or a fight. But I digress. This happened everywhere. North, south, east, west, don't matter. There's a famous saying, Malcolm X saying, quit talking about the South. Quit talking about the South. He said everything is the South of the Canadian border, under the context of racism and white supremacy in the United States of America. Malcolm X wasn't from Alabama or Georgia. Malcolm X was from Lansing, Michigan. Don't get no northern than that. His daddy was killed by a white mob of Klan members in Michigan. Here at P.A.R., we aim to remove confusion. Here at P.A.R., that is our goal. I hope I have contributed to less confusion. And I'm going to let Neely Fuller bring us on home.
Well, the white supremacists, that comes under, according to the code, and it's in the book, racial dislocation. They've done this all down since the beginning of white supremacy. Keep them squatters moving.
Yes.
You ever look at the movie Shane and whatnot? I mean, the Riker brothers, they kept coming around saying, hey, all you potato farmers and tomatoes and potatoes, I mean, get out of here. I mean, you know, because you're squatting on my land. All right. Now, they told what? The people who were called what? Red people, Native Americans, Indians and whatnot. They say, hey, you got to keep moving. You know, they say, well, we just moved. You know, well, you're going to move again. Well, where are we going to move this time, sir? Well, it's a place out there that we're going to call the land of the red man. We'll call it Oklahoma, which means land of the red man. That'll be your land. Yeah, but it's nothing out there. I mean, it's not good hunting grounds. I mean, you know, it's not the best place to be. That's where you're going. Get your rags together and get going. All right? It's called dislocation. Dislocation is not relocation. See, relocation is when you do something voluntarily. You know, you say, well, I think I'm going to move from this place to another place. Why? Because it's a better condition over there, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I came here to this place, this was a good place for me. But now the weather has changed in this place, and now the crops don't grow as well. And, you know, and I can't do this and I can't do that. The water's drying up. So I'm going to move to another place. Now, that's relocation. The white supremacists cause dislocation among non-white people all over the world. Keep them moving. Why? Because they have found out something very logical. You know, that's why people who are called gypsies are kind of looked down on. When I was a real smaller child, people say, well, gypsies are people that you avoid. And I say, gypsies? Who are gypsies? Say, well, they are people that move around a lot. They don't have a particular place.
Yeah, vagabonds, you know, and all that.
They just go from place to place and whatnot. The people run them out of every place that they go. Mm-hmm. I say, well, why do people run them out? They say because they steal, they're dirty, they lie, they cheat. And I say, well, why are they like that? And I wasn't getting any answers, but then I said, well, it might have something to do with moving around all the time when you don't want to move. Okay? I said, yeah, people get to the place, they lie, they cheat, they steal when they're forced to move from one place to another. And they just settle in one place and just halfway get settled. And then I started noticing that's the way black people are.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're the real world gypsies.
Yeah, come on,
all right? Because the white supremacists, by the time you get a halfway decent job, they get a house halfway paid for, or about a third of the way, you never get it paid for because that's a trick too.
Yeah.
All right? Now, so, you know, and here they come. Now we're going to, this place is kind of getting kind of savage. That's what they really mean. And so let's gentrify it. Now just look at the term itself. Gentrify, meaning like gentlemen. We're going to make this a gentle place because right now it's all messed up chaos. Anywhere you find black people, because we always see to it that where black people are. Black people want to get away from other black people.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because what they do is give just a little bit to a few black people and absolutely nothing to the rest of them.
The rest of it, yeah.
And what you think's going to happen? Like I used to give this illustration. If you're the only person on your block that's got a job, and everybody else on your block is sitting out there on the curb when you leave your house, what do you think is going to happen?
You know what's going to happen.
See, I mean, it's real. And look at the whole world that way.
Yeah.
Because that's what the white supremacists do.
Neely Fuller Jr., straight no chaser, balls. And remember, keep learning, and stay codified.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
If you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. Confuse you.
My definition of white supremacy and racism, I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.